In this video, we will identify the list of Entra ID and Azure built-in roles and assign to users, groups, service principal, and manage identities. Okay, first thing, what we are going to do here, let's identify the list of built-in roles in Entra ID. Okay, so how do we do that? Comes to the roles and admin, and let's see the list of built-in roles. Now you can see that this is the list of built-in roles. Okay, now you might use most of the time out of the built-in role itself. Okay, but if you need to do the kind of like a custom role, then this is where you can go ahead and do the custom role, um, if that's the use case. My preference is always to utilize the built-in role, because as soon as you start creating a custom role, that means your operational process will demand um, additional labor. That's what I notice. And the more custom role that you add within the system start becoming much more complicated. All right, so that's the only thing I want to highlight. But this is where you can see the role and what are the things that you need to know. um, this is the name of the role, this is the description of the role, and whether it is a privileged role or not, you can identify it based on that particular tag. Those are the role. To some extent you can think of Microsoft is talking about the kind of admin roles. So yeah, just make sure that you're understanding, based on that particular switch, that it's a privileged role. And you should have some specific strategy for managing the privileged role. Okay, let's click on the role, um, and see some of the other details actually. So here, if you look at on the description side of it, it tells you some more thing, such as there is a template ID assigned to each role. Now this template ID is fixed across all, like Entra ID. It's a global, you can say, the template ID given to this particular role. And you can understand that what, the specific permissions that you getting out of that particular role. So it's very useful, um, to some extent, because this is where you come back and you steal the guidance, to create the custom roles. These are the things, very essential, when you create the custom role. Okay, so you need to know the template ID when you manage the role assignment, role definition, through the IAC code. That means through the automation. Most of the automation that you do is based on the template ID, not the name itself, right? That's the thing that I want to highlight, so that exactly, for automation purpose, what is needed, what is privileged role, those kind of things. And if you create the custom role, the last column here will be flagged as custom role. All right, that is how you read it in the portal. And almost all the roles that are supported by Entra ID is seen. Now there is a public guidance also available for this role, which is to some extent, I think, much more detail sometimes. That's what I feel. So you can come back to the Microsoft Learn and just search for Microsoft Entra built-in roles, and this is where you can see, a lot more details. If you want to go ahead and take a look again, if there are some specific advisory like this in the form of some notes, you can get a little more insight actually. But whatever that you see here, almost, is available in the portal. Maybe some of the roles you might find, you know available here and not in the portal, because my understanding is that sometimes Microsoft, commission and decommission the role. So what is coming is published, what is decommissioning will be again published, and you may not see that as part of the uh, part of the portal. So some kind of like a deviation, but that deviation is not much. I think that deviation is very little to some extent. So even you feel that you using the built-in role in the portal itself, that is fine, I guess. Almost 99% or more than that use cases should be okay in all the cases actually. Okay, that's about the Entra ID roles. Now, Azure RBAC roles are not seen here. For Azure RBAC roles, you have to get on the Azure portal, okay, and let's say subscription. And on the subscription, this is the IAM blade, um, and this is where you can see all those roles basically. Okay, now here if you look at, um, there are almost like a 604 roles just for managing the subscription itself. Now, which role to use depends on how many services that you onboarding. That's one thing. Second thing is that you definitely need to define your RBAC strategy for managing roles, resource roles basically. These are resource roles, right? These are not Entra ID roles. So you have to have some kind of like a strategy. Um, Largely what I notice that people make use of these three roles most of the time, and I think that is sufficient. But some places when security is a lot more concern, uh, organization might want to use like a much more fine grain approach, for the access management. Okay, that is where the use cases I see. But most of the places I think you might end up using owner, contributor, reader, and there are few more like a user access administrator or security administrator or security reader, right? um, Rest of them totally depends on how fine grain you want to do your RBAC for the resource management. Okay, in this case as well you can see the name of the role, the description of the role, the type of role, the category for which it is applicable, right? Because all container related role, AI related role, something like that, right? And view details, let's go ahead and click on the view details and let's see what we see here. So in this case as well, what happened, it is the same thing that we saw in Entra ID built-in roles, right? If you want to do the custom role for the resource management, I think you can pick up the guidance from these roles like this. What do you want exactly, right? In the actions, so you can define your actions in your custom role. But what do you get as part of the built-in capability? You can see all of them here. Okay, and another thing is that here you might find the role ID, something like we saw in the Entra built-in role like a template ID. You will see the role ID in this case here, right? And this is the role ID that you will use in your all IAC or any kind of automation for role assignment to the resources, to the identities. you know um, so this is the ID that you make use of, and this ID is again like a same ID across you know um, the whole of Azure. It's not something specific to the tenant. So the owner will have this role ID, all the type of like a tenant subscription, doesn't matter. So that is what you use for the automation purpose, right? Yeah, whoever got that assignment will come to know, but I think most of the things is basically permissions and that role ID, right? Now in this case as well, uh, all the roles that are publicly available, um, let's say this is the public version of those built-in roles. um, Again, what Microsoft is bringing to the table, whether they're going to publish later or publish, some type of deviation, but that deviation is not much in this case as well. Okay, sometimes you can find a lot more information on the portal, but not in the um, Azure itself. Okay, those are the things. Um, if you look at the public guidance, you can see the ID explicitly specified against each role, and that's the ID. The same ID that we saw here in the portal. So it's no different in this case as well. And this is the ID that you're going to use to do the role assignment through the IAC. All right. Now that's pretty much related to the built-in roles. Again, when you in the portal, uh, you can get a good feel of what that role offers, and going through the details, something like this, you'll come to know whether that it's over privilege or something like that, right? And then you think of creating a custom role if needed. Again, my personal advice would be, I would like to avoid custom role creation all the time in all the solution. It's just because of it just adds up lot more complexity within the environment. And if you don't have sufficient resourcing to maintain your DevOps environment, then is a problem as such. Okay, so it depends on how you will position, how your DevOps practices are, um, you know how effectively you communicate to the user community that there are custom rules for the consumption. um, all those practices matters. If you do not have those practices in place, it means that there is a challenge as such. Okay, that's it around the built-in roles. Now let's go ahead and see how we can assign these roles to the user and groups. As I said, like for Entra ID, here, let's say in this particular case, you saying that you would like to assign this role to the user. You click on, you um, select the user, let's say this user in this particular case, right? And you just go ahead and assign the role to the user, right? Or you might say that, okay, no, I would like to assign the group roles to the group, right? Now here is the interesting thing you might have noticed. There are two more groups we created there, such as like acting and cricket, I guess. Yes, right. Those groups not seen in this list. Why? It's just because of when we created those groups, we did not select enter ID role assignment to that particular group. So we can't go ahead and assign any kind of role to that particular group. That's the learning. In order to assign the enter ID role to the group, you must enable that particular enter ID role switch at the time of group creation itself. Okay, that's the thing. But that is something not with these Azure subscriptions role, which is RBAC. Here you can come select the role assignment, something like this, and let's say that this is the reader role you would like to assign to the group service principal. You can come back and you can say that, okay, there is this group, right? Cricket and the acting, and you can just select like this. So you got a group there selected. If you want to assign to the specific user, you can assign to the specific user. You can select like that. Or if you feel that you would like to assign to the specific service principal, I think we have service principal in this particular case, you can select that. um, I think we had that one SPN we created. Let's say sometimes you have to type, you can't find like that, so you can select like that, right? So that's one thing. You can go ahead and just assign those roles to the user, service principal, group, or you can assign to the manage identity. Now we had one manage identity we assigned to the virtual machine. No, we had user assign as well. So you can see that the user assign manage identity UI apps one, that is what we created, and that is how you assign the role. And similar way, if it is a system assign manage identity, you can do that assignment something like this. Okay, so that is how you do the assignment of the role to the specific um, entity, whether it is the user, group, service principal or manage identity, right? Likewise, the same thing works for the Entra ID as well. So if you go back to the things here and you come back, um, we 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 might find the service principal here. Okay, so all you can see that particular service principal we can see here. All right, so you can assign the Entra ID roles also to the service principal. Okay, that's pretty much in this particular session. I think you have now good understanding of built-in roles, what exactly to look for when you do the automation, how to do the custom role, and basically what are the challenges associated with custom role, and how do you assign those roles to the Entra ID users, right? Whether it is a RBAC role or whether it is a Entra ID roles.